A $1 pharmacy bottle replaces over $100 in garden products. The EPA approved it decades ago. The USDA certified it for organic farms. Peer-reviewed studies from 3 continents confirm it works, yet the average gardener has never heard of it. The global pesticide industry generated $156 billion last year. They have zero incentive to tell you about a molecule nobody can patent. Today, you get 15 specific applications with exact dilution ratios, everyone backed by published science or regulatory approval. The compound is hydrogen peroxide, and the story of why you've never been told this starts 200 years ago. Welcome to a channel that recovers what the market buries. We find practical knowledge that works but doesn't generate quarterly profits. The kind of information your great-grandparents passed down but corporations never advertised. Subscribing means you stay informed when we uncover the next suppressed solution, and today's material is especially well documented. The institutions you trust already validated this, they just never told you. Let's start with the chemistry, because once you understand why this works, the 15 applications become obvious. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, one more oxygen atom than water. When it decomposes, it breaks into water and oxygen. Nothing else. No residue, no buildup, no persistent chemicals. It kills through oxidation. The extra oxygen atom strips electrons from microbial cell walls. Bacteria rupture. Fungal spores collapse. Algae disintegrate. It's not poison. It's aggressive chemistry. But that's just pathway 1. Pathway 2 is oxygenation. That released oxygen dissolves into soil or water. Root systems breathe better. Anaerobic pathogens that thrive in oxygen-poor environments suffocate. Beneficial aerobic bacteria multiply. You're not adding a nutrient, you're changing the atmosphere at root level. Pathway 3 shocked researchers. Plants naturally produce hydrogen peroxide during germination. It's a signaling molecule. Seeds use it to trigger growth cascades. Frontiers in Plant Science published this in 2016. You're not introducing something foreign, you're amplifying the plant's own chemistry. 3 mechanisms, 1 molecule. And humans figured this out in 1818. Louis-Jacques Thénard isolated it in France. He called it eau oxygénée, oxygenated water. Alexander von Humboldt had observed barium peroxide reactions in 1799, but Thénard identified the pure compound. By the mid-1800s, it appeared in medical texts. By 1900, it was a standard antiseptic. But there's a parallel tradition most Westerners never encountered. In Japan, small-plot intensive gardening kept families fed for generations on land parcels Americans would consider too small to bother with. The grandpa tending 30 square meters of vegetables wasn't reading academic journals. He was inheriting techniques from his grandfather. Hydrogen peroxide for root rot, hydrogen peroxide for seed starting, hydrogen peroxide when the soil smelled wrong. These weren't scientific trials. These were survival practices refined across centuries, past elder to younger, and preserved in oral tradition and informal networks. And because it never depended on commercial channels, it survived when Western garden centers filled with patented products. So the science is clear. The tradition is ancient, which raises an uncomfortable question. Why has a $156 billion industry never mentioned this? Before we answer that, you need to know something. What you're getting in this video is surface-level access to a deep research base. We've compiled concentration protocols for over 40 plant species, seasonal timing charts, pathogen-specific dilution matrices, temperature and humidity interaction data, the kind of granular detail that turns 15 applications into 50. That lives in the vault, searchable, organized by category, no fluff, no filler. Just protocols you can't find anywhere else because nobody profits from compiling them. The link is in the description. But everything you need to start is right here. Let's get into the applications, starting with the one that shocked researchers at 3 separate universities. Seed germination. Riffle and Springfield published in Forest Science in 1968. They tested hydrogen peroxide on 6 woody species. Germination rates climbed across all 6. Not marginal improvement, consistent, measurable enhancement. North Carolina State confirmed it decades later. Jetton and Whittier worked with Atlantic white cedar, stubborn seeds. Hydrogen peroxide broke dormancy mechanisms that cold stratification alone couldn't touch. Adam Mickiewicz University in Poland tested stress tolerance. Yeast seeds treated with hydrogen peroxide handled drought and temperature swings better than untreated controls. Published findings, peer-reviewed, available to anyone. The NIH published a 2012 study on pea seed invigoration. Controlled concentrations improved seedling vigor, measured in root mass, measured in shoot length, quantified and photographed. Horticulturi published hydroponic effectiveness in 2021. Growers worldwide already used it. The study just confirmed what practitioners knew: pathogen suppression without killing the crop. But here's the result that should have made headlines: powdery mildew on cucumbers, infection rates at 90% in untreated controls. Hydrogen peroxide treatment dropped it to 12%, 90 to 12, with a product you buy at the pharmacy for $1. Now, the EPA knows this. They registered hydrogen peroxide as an antimicrobial. Active ingredient, chemical code 0000595. They evaluated the efficacy data. They approved the use. The USDA listed it under the National Organic Program. Title 7, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 205.601. Allowed for organic certified farms. OMRI certified it. Canada's organic standards include it. These are published peer-reviewed findings, available to anyone. Confirmed by government agencies on 3 continents, yet absent from every garden center shelf card in the country. So if the EPA approved it, the USDA listed it, and universities on 3 continents proved it works, who exactly decided you shouldn't know? The global pesticide market generated $156.6 billion in 2024. The crop protection chemical sector alone pulled $67 billion. Bayer Crop Science, Syngenta, BASF, Corteva, FMC. These corporations don't sell products. They sell recurring revenue streams, proprietary fungicides, insecticidal soaps, rooting hormones, sterilizing agents, soil amendments, each sold separately, each branded, each patented or trademarked where possible, each designed to be repurchased. Hydrogen peroxide is a simple molecule, chemical formula published in 1818. You cannot patent it. You cannot trademark it. You cannot create brand loyalty around it. You cannot build a subscription model. You cannot engineer planned obsolescence. One gardener using hydrogen peroxide for 15 applications is a gardener who doesn't buy 15 products. Multiply that by millions of home gardeners, tens of millions globally. Now, calculate the revenue loss. Extension services receive funding from agricultural corporations. Trade publications run ads from the same companies. Retail shelf space goes to products with the highest margins. Nobody markets hydrogen peroxide to gardeners because nobody profits from telling you. Some corporations did try to capture the chemistry. Peroxyacetic acid formulations, same oxidative mechanism, patentable blend, higher price point. You're paying for packaging and marketing of chemistry that's been public domain for 2 centuries. And when overblown claims about hydrogen peroxide appear online, the industry-funded myth-debunking articles arrive fast. They're not wrong to call out the nonsense. Hydrogen peroxide won't regrow hair or cure cancer. But dismissing the absurd claims also buries the valid ones, the ones with EPA approval and peer-reviewed backing. The arithmetic is simple. 1 bottle costs $1. It replaces products that together cost over $100. The industry has built a business model on you not doing that math. None of this means hydrogen peroxide is perfect. It isn't. And if I didn't tell you the limitations, I'd be doing exactly what the industry does, selling you a story instead of the truth. If you're still watching, hit subscribe. We dig through suppressed research so you don't have to. Sharing this information is how it spreads. The algorithm won't promote what doesn't generate product sales. You will, now, what hydrogen peroxide can't do. Concentration matters. 3% is standard. Go above 10% and you're dealing with a corrosive. 30% causes chemical burns. Industrial 50% is an explosive hazard. The EPA classifies high concentration formulations as toxicity category 1. Stick to 3% food grade from the pharmacy. It kills indiscriminately. Beneficial soil microbes die alongside pathogens. The effect is temporary. Soil half-life is 1.4 hours. Beneficial populations recolonize in 24 to 72 hours. But if you drench soil weekly, you're disrupting the microbiome you're trying to protect. Some species hate it. Peace lilies show root damage at concentrations that brassicas tolerate fine. Our orchids are sensitive. One study on moth orchids showed root tip necrosis at concentrations above recommended ranges. Rice seedlings showed growth inhibition in another trial. Test on a small section before widespread use. It's not a broad-spectrum insecticide. It kills soft-bodied pests on contact, aphids, spider mites if you spray directly. But it won't touch beetles. It won't stop caterpillars unless you drown them. And it does nothing for systemic pests. Pharmacy-grade bottles contain stabilizers, usually acetanilide or phenol. Food grade is cleaner. If you're applying to edibles, spend the extra $1 for food grade. With those boundaries clear, here are the 15 applications with the exact ratios. Seed germination enhancement. Soak seeds in a solution of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 32 parts water for 8 to 24 hours before planting. The oxidation scarifies seed coats and triggers germination hormones. Works best on hard-coated seeds like morning glories or old seeds with low viability. Rinse before planting. Root rot treatment. Mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. Water-affected plants at the soil line. The oxygen burst kills anaerobic pathogens like Pythium and Phytophthora while aerating waterlogged roots. Use once, wait 72 hours, assess. Overuse kills beneficial microbes. Hydroponic system maintenance. Add 2 to 3 milliliters of 3% hydrogen peroxide per liter of nutrient solution. Maintains pathogen-free water without chlorine. Standard practice in commercial hydroponic operations worldwide. Replace weekly with fresh solution. Powdery mildew and fungal diseases. Spray affected leaves with 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 8 parts water. Apply early morning or late evening to avoid leaf burn in direct sun. The oxidation disrupts fungal cell walls. Repeat every 3 days for 2 weeks. Effective on cucurbits, roses, and squash. Soil sterilization for seed starting. Drench seed starting mix with 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 10 parts water before planting. Kills damping off pathogens without persistent chemicals. Let soil sit for 24 hours before sowing. This is scorched earth sterilization. Use only for sterile starts, never established beds. Algae control in greenhouses and pots. These spray 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 10 parts water on algae-covered surfaces. The oxidation breaks down algae cells on contact, works on pots, benches, and greenhouse glazing. Rinse food contact surfaces after treatment. Compost acceleration. Add 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per cubic yard of compost pile. The oxygen boost feeds aerobic bacteria and speeds decomposition. Temperatures rise faster. Odor decreases. Based on Acta Horticulturae research from 2001. Cutting and transplant success. Dip cut ends in undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide for 5 seconds before rooting. The brief oxidation kills surface pathogens and stimulates root initiation. Works on woody and herbaceous cuttings. Rinse and place in rooting medium immediately. Foliar spray for general plant health. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water. Spray leaves weekly. The oxygen absorption through stomata enhances photosynthesis. Anecdotal reports suggest improved vigor. Peer-reviewed backing is thin here, but practitioner validation is strong. Cleaning pots and tools between uses. Soak in 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water for 10 minutes. Kills residual pathogens without bleach. Rinse and air dry. Especially useful for tools used on diseased plants. Root zone oxygenation for overwatered plants. Water with 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 16 parts water. The released oxygen helps roots recover from anaerobic stress. Use once, then adjust watering practices. This treats the symptom, not the cause. Spray for soft-bodied pests. Mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 8 parts water. Add a drop of dish soap as a surfactant. Spray aphids and spider mites directly. The oxidation ruptures their exoskeletons. Repeat every 3 days. Only kills on contact. Reservoir and birdbath cleaning. Add 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 16 parts water. Let sit for 30 minutes. Scrub and rinse. Kills mosquito larvae and algae without poisoning birds. Pre-planting soil drench for pathogen control. Water planting holes with 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. Let sit for 1 hour before planting. Reduces soil-borne disease pressure in problem areas. Last resort measure. Kills everything temporarily. Sprouting seeds for consumption. Rinse sprouting seeds daily with 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 32 parts water. Prevents mold and bacterial growth during the sprouting process. Food safe and effective. Rinse thoroughly before eating. 15 applications, 1 bottle, $1, and a $156 billion industry that would prefer you never learned any of this. 207 years ago, Louis-Jacques Thénard isolated a molecule in a French laboratory. He published the formula. It entered public domain immediately. Decades later, the EPA and USDA confirmed what chemists already knew. It worked. But the Japanese grandfather never needed the EPA. He learned from his grandfather, who learned from his. They passed it one plant at a time. No patent, no trademark, no quarterly earnings call. It's just knowledge that survived because it never depended on someone else's profit motive. You can walk into a pharmacy today and buy it for $1. It sits on the shelf next to bandages. The same institutions that regulate your food and water have already told you it's effective. The peer-reviewed literature, spanning 6 decades, agrees. You now know what a $156 billion industry doesn't advertise. The science that's published but not promoted. The tradition that survived in small plots and oral transmission. This knowledge spreads person to person, the same way it survived in Japanese gardens, the same way it avoided corporate capture. You share it, or it stays buried. Next time, we're covering the mineral supplement banned in 15 countries but sold over the counter in the United States. The research exists, the suppression is documented, and you won't hear about it anywhere else.